Well, welcome to podcast number 20 of the Relationship Restaurant, and a very happy new year to you. Pops, can you believe it? It's our first one of the year here, and hope everybody survived the holidays all right. We are Poppy and Geoff Spencer, and we predetermined this, that 2018 is going to be a great year, and hope you have a great year as well. We created the Relationship Restaurant podcast as a way to serve you some heart-healthy communication in all of your relationships. We have a whole menu of opportunities for you to feast on, and we hope you'll enjoy consuming the offerings of the Relationship Restaurant. Today we're talking about defense mechanisms. And after the very busy holiday time and holiday decision-making, how to identify what we truly need and desire as we go into the new year.
And that's always a big thing. I'm sure you've all seen on social media the many, many posts and the goals that people have. And we've decided that we're having a word of the year. So this will take us through the entire year of 2018. And that word, I'll tell you in a moment, but I'll tell you, it's a word that we repeated. In 2008, when my youngest of two children were just teenagers, I made it the word of the year. And I got certainly tons of eye rolling and grunted sighs.
And lots of pushback.
Lots of pushback. But now they are successfully working and living independently as 23 and 24-year-olds. And we'd like that word to be reinstated this year.
For relationships this time.
And it's for everything, though. Mm-hmm. It's for the relationship with ourselves or with others. And that word is accountability. And if our kids are listening, I know you're
Oh, they just rolled their eyes again.
So 10 years later, we're reinstating the word of the year. In fact, we used it in 2008 and 2009 because it was so effective.
As consultants and as advisors to so many people, one of the best gifts we offer you, our client, is this gift of accountability, because it is a gift. With both compassion and clarity, we often hold up a mirror to show you the things and scenarios that you are too close and have not been able to see. Sometimes it's right in front of you, but you either can't see it or don't want to see it.
So we're like that wide angle lens. We
Yep.
just, you're in a telescopic relationship, but we help you to widen out that lens.
Accountability is one more step to move forward to get the results you really want. That's the very first thing. You have to be personally accountable.
Yeah. And in the new year, we often make unconscious and conscious decisions to improve those areas in our lives that leave us sort of dissatisfied, disgruntled. We set goals. It could be physical goals.
Oh, we're always doing that. We're always going to be losing weight, getting in better shape.
Yeah. Our gym goals, our intellectual goals. We might say, I'm going to take this online course or pursue a new area of study, or I'm going to start this career development program. And the emotional, we might take more time to be still and present, meditate. And we might take some time to be unplugged and spend more time with partners or family.
And from these goals, if we are really accountable to ourselves, we might uncover some undesirable results. That's the hard part.
Yes.
We may find that we have split energies, and often we're distracted. Boy, do we not feel that the past couple of weeks? We had a house full of family and guests, and
it was wonderful.
It was absolutely wonderful. We loved every second of it, but did we accomplish anything else in our lives besides having a great time with family?
But we were very present with them. So
absolutely.
That's certainly one of the goals that we already started.
Which is a great gift to ourselves and to them, is to be fully present and unplugged. We're going from one event to the next without any conscious awareness. And we're taking the time now to be still and show up, and accountability is only for the brave of heart. We were sitting here kidding about this, but it is. This is where the one word that I always go back to, courage, comes into play here. It certainly takes courage to look at the things we have conveniently shoved in this kitchen drawer that we're not wanting to look at.
Right. As a psychology professor in college, I spent time with my students looking at the psychological defense mechanisms that Freud introduced many years ago, and then his daughter Anna.
How's this always get back to Freud, Poppy?
Oh, I always bring up Freud. And people have a love-hate relationship with Freud as it is. But those defense mechanisms that all of us humans use to protect our ego, and we do that, is our primitive brain structure, and it's for survival. So we always had these defense mechanisms right there in play on the front burner, ready to go. And a couple of them are denial, dissociation, repression, projection, and rationalization, to name a few.
Dr. John Grohol describes Freud's defense mechanisms in this way. Denial. Many people use denial in their everyday lives to avoid dealing with painful feelings or areas of their life they don't wish to admit. Boy, don't we all, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We have all done this in some form or another. It's hardwired into our brains to protect the ego in order to survive, as Poppy was just saying. So denial is often a go-to coping skill, albeit not a very effective one for a strong relationship with people.
Right. I'm sure we've used denial every day in our lives, whether we're aware of it or not. The second one is dissociation. And Grohol describes it when a person loses track of time and instead finds another representation of their self in order to continue in the moment. So a person who dissociates often loses themselves and their thought processes and memories. Certainly people who have had a history of any kind of child abuse, they suffer from some sort of dissociation. They also have a disconnected view of themselves in the world. So time and their own self-image may not flow continuously as it does for many people. But in this manner, a person who dissociates can disconnect from the real world for a time and live in a different world that's not cluttered with thoughts, feelings, or memories that are unbearable or unacceptable.
So they just kind of check out.
They just kind of check out. And I know to some degree that we all do this in a very low-level form.
Okay, another one, regression, is the reversion to an earlier stage of development in the face of unacceptable thoughts or impulses. For instance, in a family gathering or a reunion, perhaps over the holidays like we all just had, we may regress to allowing ourselves to be treated like our 9-year-old self by older siblings. We see that all the time, even with our kids. Even though we're all adults in 30s, 40s, 50s, or more, we may regress to a behavior that we used as a kid because it's encoded in our brains. We just can't get rid of it. And often we aren't even conscious of it. We just do it. And someone else has to point it out to you.
Right. I know certainly in my family origin, I just have one older sibling. Suddenly I'm back being the 9-year-old self. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute.
Your big brother's
I'm an adult.
in charge here,
So, and it's not just my brother, it's just the parents too. They just conform to that. So I don't know if any of you have that experience. Certainly let us know. You can find us on our website, poppyandgeoff.com. It's poppyandgeoff.com, and leave a comment or whatever.
The thought that Poppy is talking about here is one that you feel this happening. How is this happening? Why am I acting like this? And why is this little dynamic taking place? It's one of those things you find yourself in. And it's one of those times where you often have to step back from yourself and look at it objectively, or have someone else do that with you. That's where often counseling comes in such a nice way.
And certainly we had that with our own relationship. We are college sweethearts at 21 years of age who got split up because of a lack of communication, which is why we do this as our professional work today. And one of the things that when Geoff and I first got back together almost 7.5 years ago, I regressed to some previous 21-year-old thoughts and feelings that I had just even talking about our college experiences. And I had to consciously be aware of that. Even though I'm a teacher and student of psychology, I still found myself regressing to those earlier primitive thoughts and behaviors. So projection, this is a common one that we see. Simply put, it's like putting our own thoughts and feelings on another person without recognizing that we're the ones who are thinking and feeling those thoughts and emotions. We often say, change the pronoun from you to I to direct someone back. Dr. John Grohol says, projection is used especially when the thoughts are considered unacceptable for the person to express, or they're ill at ease with having them. For example, a spouse may be angry at their significant other for not listening, when in fact it's the angry spouse who's the one not listening. So projection is often the result of a lack of insight and acknowledgement of one's own motivations and feelings. And this is going to take us back to our word of the year, accountability. We want you to be accountable for all of these conscious and unconscious thoughts that may enter your mind. And we'll give you some tips later on how to make that happen.
Lastly, rationalization. Oh boy, one of the all-time classics, huh? One of the most common defense mechanisms we see, and one we wrote about a whole bunch in our, very proud to say, #1 Amazon bestseller, 1 Billion Seconds, which now, by the way, is also available in an audio fashion. Poppy and I recorded that last year. But according to Grohol, rationalization is putting something into a different light or offering a different explanation for one's perceptions or behaviors in the face of changing reality. For instance, a woman who starts dating a man she really, really likes and thinks the world is suddenly jumped by the man for no reason. She reframes the situation in her mind with, I suspected he was a loser all along. You kind of throw that rationalization blanket over it because whatever reason, you don't know what it is many times. So that's a kind of a way his rationalization plays out.
Right. So we mentioned these defense mechanisms and just a handful of them. There are many, many more because they all have one thing in common. They undermine accountability, our word of the year. So if we can be accountable to ourselves and with introspection, look at our own lives, the choices we make, even the undesirable thoughts and feelings that pop into our heads, if we can look at those with courage and objectivity, we can have positive outcomes.
We've found out from our research and personal experience as well. Sure. We've discovered that sometimes January is a month for some real big soul searching, and even the month that people consider breaking up or divorce or separations, whatever they are in their lives. They have persevered through the holidays, and we even have chapters and blogs about this, about waiting until after the holidays. For the sake of family, kids, parents, and grandparents, whatever, we've discovered that their partner or spouse is just not cutting it for them. This is when they kind of, they've cleared, just like we have. You've cleared out the holidays, you've survived it, you've put away all the decorations, and you're like, wow, okay, I'm right back where we were, and my relationship is still as it was, and it's just not acceptable. Online searches for how to divorce peaks this month in January. People now are sitting back, quiet evenings. They're reassessing, and they go, wow. It also peaks in March, by the way, after perhaps they take one last spring break with the family to see if that can make it happen, and time away can be the thing that gels. So we rationalized our way through Christmas and New Year's and perhaps avoided conflict or denied that there was rampant dissatisfaction. And now we have the new year and all those amazing social media posts of resolutions and successful goals, and you're sitting there feeling stuck. You allow yourself to identify that your relationship is not fulfilling. That's okay to do. And even though the happy family photo that you just posted on Instagram and got 143 likes, you're just not feeling it. You have a leftover knot in your stomach, and you can no longer project onto your partner or spouse that he or she thinks the bad thought that you actually do.
Yeah, you're the one feeling the thought, but you project it on your partner.
You're saying it's them, but you're the one feeling it.
So what can we do? Well, we came up with 3 things that we can do right now to lovingly hold yourself accountable to your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Number 1, get real with you. For 1 week, consider unplugging for 2 to 3 hours of your day. I know this sounds like a lot. No smartphones, iPads, or computer. In this time that you've carved out, consider meditating for 15 to 20 minutes. If that's too long, consider 5 to 10 minutes.
And if you haven't meditated before, folks, there's great things. You know, our friend Jack Canfield, who's a mentor to so many folks, an inspiration, he's got a nice little thing he has it online. You can just kind of follow how he takes you through how to meditate. It isn't some weird hokey pokey thing. It's a very simple process. You just sit back and clear your head and allow thoughts to come into it. And it's a very simple process.
He's the chicken soup for the soul guy.
Right.
You just said that. And he's our master coach as well and friend now. Anyway, take that time to meditate and then go to a notebook or journal and write down every thought that comes into your head without judgment or filter or censor. Just let it out. Many, many years ago, Julia Cameron wrote a book and she suggested writing in this way. And if it comes out that all you're doing is making lists or a list of other things, that's fine. We just want you to write. Research shows us that the tactile motion of writing, and this is handwritten, not typing on the keyboard, increases activity in the brain's motor cortex. That effect is similar to meditation. And that's why they explain that journaling
is so good.
Is so therapeutic. And it helps with mindfulness, which is really what we need when we're in this state of stuckness.
And then the second thing we were going to tell you to do, and this leverages our emotional clock that we have available, happy to give to anybody, folks who contact us. They have a 6 o'clock, we call it a 6 o'clock conversation with yourself. And 6 o'clock is when you've gone through all this pain and angst, and it's gotten to a point where you have to do something. And that's what we always call the 6 o'clock moment. And that's usually where people contact us, when they're at 6 o'clock and things aren't working. Well, have this conversation with yourself. And if you feel comfortable, if you feel you can do it, talk to your partner or your spouse and kind of sort things out. If you've already had that conversation way too many times and the discussion produces the same abysmal results, just have it with yourself. The emotional clock is a good communication tool that we created to help you look at these things. And when you're talking to someone like us, you can, or even with each other, you can point at what you're feeling. It's a great, like Poppy was just saying, this tactile thing. It's a way for you to point at something and go, this is what I'm feeling.
The emotional clock has 12 emotional settings.
An analog clock that we actually physically created.
So number 1, confusion.
It was confusion, right?
2 is anxiety. 3, despair. 4 o'clock is shame and guilt. 5 o'clock is anger.
Very popular place for people to be.
And 6 o'clock is fight or flight, or that's the decision-making time.
You can't stand it anymore and you have to do something.
But our favorite time
is 7
o'clock, which is sort of counterintuitive because it goes 7 o'clock is relief, 8 o'clock is hopefulness, 9 o'clock is hopefulness, and then 10 o'clock is confidence, 11 o'clock is joy, and 12 o'clock is love. But we like 7 o'clock relief because 8 o'clock is forgiveness. 7 o'clock gives us that huge, that exhaling breath of
that you've done
release.
Something, that you've actually made a decision and you've just not wallowing in this anger and guilt and all the different things, the loops we talk about from 3 to 5 o'clock that people just get stuck in, and they can be stuck in that for literally their entire adult lives and relationships. And it's so important to get to 6 o'clock to do something about it.
And we've worked with people that have committed to, I want my relationship to work. We're going to find relief in that relationship, and we're going to show you how to do that.
Even if the other person doesn't change, you can still find a relief.
Yes.
And so many people say, I want to find relief because I want to move on from this relationship. I know it's never going to work. That's probably one of the hardest things for people to come to that conclusion, that it can't work and that they've done everything they can. And we help people often. Have I done everything I can be a real dragged out process. Poppy and I've seen this happen over and over where they keep trying and they just never seem to get anywhere. The third thing is talking to us.
Talk to a professional. Sometimes the stigma of a therapist might hold some people back, and consider reaching out to us or to another consultant. Sometimes the fear of talking to someone becomes a barrier because we're afraid, oh boy, once I've opened this door to an outsider, I have to move forward. I have to make a decision. But that's just not the case. You can talk with someone and do nothing more than just to sort out your thoughts.
People often like to talk to us just to get some confirmation.
Right.
I know I've said this to people in my past. Am I crazy? Or, because you're sitting there looking at what your situation is and goes, can this be real? Can this be where I really am? Do you see this as well? And we can often help people sort through that.
Right. Oftentimes we've worked with people that have moved forward to end their relationship. And we've also worked with people that have decided to stay in their relationship. And we help.
And accept where they are and just say, hey, this is what it is.
Okay. The short version here. The number 1, get real with you. Consider unplugging. So many times this Dr. Jean Tang, who we follow all the time, Twang, talks about how epidemic it is for this younger generation that she calls the iGen, that are so connected on their smartphones and that their face-to-face relationships are so severely impaired. Teen depression is on the rise in rampant numbers because we are so plugged in. You've heard these stories before many times that the social media posting has left us feeling less than, unworthy, unfulfilled, not belonging.
Everybody else is so happy. Why am I not, huh?
We found that if you look really closely at some of those pictures, we've certainly done that in our own lives when we had less than desirable relationships and experiences, that we can actually look back at photographs of our eyes.
Those faked and forced smiles.
Yeah, we can see that. So that's why we encourage the number 1 thing for you to do to hold yourself accountable this year is to get real and consider unplugging for as long as time as you can do it.
Do have that hard conversation with yourself.
Yeah, we foster heart-to-heart and heart-healthy communication with not only yourself, but with others. And number 2, have that 6 o'clock conversation. And number 3, talk to a professional.
We love helping people in these situations.
A 30-minute free consultation to see if working with us is the right fit for both of us. Sometimes we might recommend you to someone else. As consultants, we consider ourselves like architects. We help you to move forward to get the results you want. Sometimes talking with a therapist is like an archaeologist. You have to dig up stuff that has been challenging in your relationships. So we will help you move forward. You can reach out to us again at poppyandgeoff.com, poppyandgeoff.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as the Relational A-Team. That's what one of our clients called us once, and we liked it a couple of years ago, and it's sort of stuck. So think about one thing that you can do today to hold yourself accountable. I think that would be a gift that you could give yourselves, and we offer that opportunity for you.
And again, we are Poppy and Geoff Spencer. We are delighted you joined us here on episode 20 of the Relationship Restaurant. We look forward to talking to you next week with our next episode
of heart-healthy communication. Take care, y'all. Make this day great and accountable.